How's it going? David from Comic Book Investments, and I'm here with Mark Wilson, who happens to be also my father. And for guys who don't know who he was a huge comic book dealer through the 80s and 90s. He then went on to work for Heritage. Then he was the head finalizer at CBCS Comics. And now he has a brand new job. He is the head of the PSA comic division. So that is what he is doing now, and that's what we're going to talk to him about. Say hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello out there.
Yeah, so is there anything you'd like to add to your resume that I may have forgotten?
We done?
No. So now you are the head of the PSA comic book division. And for those who don't know who PSA is, they are primarily a card grading company from the 90s. Coins.
Big in coins.
Big in coins, okay. And what else do they grade?
WADA.
So they have video games.
Yeah, video games. What else?
Funko Pops.
Funko Pops, right.
Funko Pops.
I think they're the only grader of Funko Pops, yeah.
Do they grade VHSs? I don't know.
Yes.
They do? VHS? Yeah. Aren't you grading like DVDs or something?
There's a lot of things we're going to get into, but for right now, that's just getting ready to do that.
Okay. So is there stamp grading? I don't know.
There was. I think there still is. I've actually sent my stamps in to be graded by them.
Oh, okay. And they don't or do anymore?
I believe they do. It's just that stamps are a different hobby. There's no movies on stamps, you know?
Yeah. Hold on. Sorry, I had to make sure I was recording this. I couldn't remember I pushed play. So now you are the head of the comic book division. You pretty much are starting this from the ground up, right? You're the head person. How did that come to be?
Accident.
So you're walking down the street one day and a car came barreling down and ran you over and inundated you with grading abilities?
Right. It was a radioactive drum that landed on my head.
I see. Radioactive comic book grading case.
Right.
But so how did it all happen?
Not quite sure. It just was like a whirlwind situation. But somehow, some way, and it was through you, my name came up, and next thing I know, there's a call, and then a meeting, and then a series of meetings, and then eventually I was presented the job.
Yeah, and you left CBCS to pursue this, being like the head, basically.
The timing is like really close there, but in essence, yeah. I know that Golden reached out to me. I think it was like December or something like that, and they wanted to get a hold of you, and so that's when I talked to Elizabeth to get a hold of you, and then that whole thing. So it's been in the work for I don't know how long, but I remember Golden reached out to me quite a while ago, wanting to get a hold of you. But I've never spoken to them, so I don't know.
Well, Golden was originally owned by, they were by themselves, got bought by PSA, which is Collectors Universe. They got spun off. They made a Netflix show, and then they got sold to eBay. So Golden now is eBay.
In that deal, we got something fantastic.
That's right. You got the PSA Vault. eBay Vault.
We had the vault, but we got the eBay Vault. So now it's called the PSA Vault.
So if you go to eBay, it'll say send it to the PSA Vault.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. And it's the future.
Yeah, so if people don't know who the Vault is, basically if you don't want to house your collectible, say you buy it, you can send it straight to the Vault. They'll keep it, store it for you, and then at any point you could sell it through their systems, or you could trade it, or you could ask for it back and take it in.
It avoids a tremendous amount of problems, you know. Plus, it's in an absolute secure, climate-controlled area with live security guards. So it's a really wonderful situation that we're going to be involved in with comic books. So if you send in your Action Number 1 or Detective 27 or First Spider-Man, you know, it's going to be kept in a perfectly climate-controlled environment and safe.
Yeah. And so now that you are the head, you're starting this from scratch. Like you are writing the manuals on how to do everything.
Yes.
From the very, very beginning. So kind of tell me what your process was like at CBCS and how you're going to bring some of those over or kind of do things differently? Like what is the process like of someone submitting a comic book to PSA to get graded?
Well, it goes, there's a receiving team. At PSA, it's different than the other companies. We photograph everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we photograph it in the door, we photograph it out the door.
What does in the door, out the door mean?
Pardon me?
What does photograph in the door and out the door?
As it comes in, so we know what it looks like when it comes in.
Oh, so before you even open it, so to speak.
That's part of the receiving, is to image. We image everything. We have a database that is amazing.
So basically, if I send in this comic here, right here, before you even take it out of my plastic sleeve, you will photograph it like this?
Yes, we're not going to take it out of the sleeve to photograph, and the reason why is your treasure is precious.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to photograph it in the bag or the holder you give to us, and then it goes to experts who know how to remove it from the holder and get it set up for grading.
So that kind of alleviates people that are like, if it gets damaged in the process of grading, you could look back at the pictures and go, oh, that's interesting. That will, alleviate, I think, a lot of people's headaches, because so many times, I'm sure, we've sent it into grading companies and it's just like, wait, why is it damaged on the corner like someone dropped it? You know? And that happens in, other companies are like,
I can't tell you how many times I felt just horrible for a customer who submitted something and it got damaged in the mail because it wasn't packed properly. Everyone thinks they can package properly, but not everyone can. And that's nothing against anybody. It's just there's certain ways to do this. And we're actually going to set up a series of videos to show our customers how to do that. Because as we all know, whether it's UPS, Federal Express, or USPS, they're going to drop the box.
Yes.
They're going to hit the corner.
They might not even step on it.
Yeah, might fall on it.
Yeah.
So we have to make it as idiot-proof and shock-proof as possible, so that when it arrives to us, we know for certain that at least 99.9% of the time it's going to be perfect.
I guess that's a good point, because if you're thinking, if a customer, because we're an auction house here, so we get stuff brought to us, and so many times people package it, which they think is good, but it's not. The cases get cracked. And then it's never happened, but I could see how someone could blame us when I'm like, no, it was your poor packing, or maybe UPS bungled it or whatever. So I guess if you take pictures beforehand, you go, look, this is how it arrived to us. You packaged poorly, or FedEx dropped it or whatever and ruined it.
Yeah, at CBCS, for instance, we had a little area on the screen where we can take notes that the customer, no one would see. For instance, it was like, backer board matches the comic, or, the comic bend matches the backer board. So we know right away that the comic was bent when it was inside the backer board. And then, it can be more sophisticated, and it will be at PSA. And you can see where like the corner of the box was dinged. And then all of a sudden you've got 6, 10, 12, 14 books that all have a corner bend. That in order to, satisfy the customer, many times we would do this for free, not even say it. We'd help bend that corner back or press it out because we feel horrible for them. They send this in, they're expecting a nice grade, and then we hate to be the bearer of bad news. But I've seen whole collections ruined like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've gotten collections in, and it's just like they're all like 9.4s, but they put it in a small box and gets the corner bent on every single one, and it's just like...
We had a large order come in at PSA. I can't tell you yet what that was, but we had to deal with it, and thankfully they were new books, so they had to...
Oh, so this is for comics. So you are taking submissions?
Not like you think.
Okay.
It's kind of some kind of a program. But anyhow, they thought that they would do their due diligence and put the comic books, brand new comic books, in bags and backer boards and put them into a box that fits snugly. So you're thinking, okay, this is very snug, and they're in their own bag and backer board. Nothing's going to happen to them. Of course, they come to us, and half the collection is ruined. It's ruined. And so they had to...
Out there, if you put it in a smaller box, put that smaller box in a bigger box with packing all around.
With room around it, so if it gets shocked or banged...
It needs to be able to shift, but put
with
bubble wrap.
popcorns.
Yeah, popcorn or bubble wrap, something like that, so it shifts into that.
Yeah.
Never put the comic up the edge of the box or case or whatever it is.
That's the wonderful thing about the PSA vault too, that people don't realize yet. Like, say you have a very valuable book. Well, it goes into our vault. You don't have to worry about the shipping back, the potential for damage, the potential for theft. It's insured. There's so many. I think there's a tax relief there too, on taxes. So there's so many advantages. The one thing is, comic book collectors are kind of stubborn this way. I am too. We want to hold our own prize in our own hands.
Yes.
And so, okay, we get in our Batman 1 or Amazing Fantasy 15 #1. We're happy, we're smiling, and then what? It's like buying a new car. 3 or 4 weeks later, it's normal.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, I got to go to work every day. Where do I put it? I put it in a safe deposit box, right? Well, no, because I've seen books destroyed in safety deposit boxes because they don't have the humidity, set perfectly, even though they say they do. So I've seen pages turn brown in safety deposit boxes. So you want your treasure in an environment that's safe for its lifetime.
And now, is this a free service?
The PSA Vault?
Yeah.
You have to circle back with me on that. I'm just getting involved with the vault. We know that comic books are going to be part of that system.
So as far as what I've read and what I know, and don't quote me on this, I believe it's free to send it there, but if you want it back, that's when you have to pay some fees.
Oh, yeah, there's shipping fees.
Shipping fees. There's also like restocking fees and stuff like that. And I know that they have it, so it's like if they sell it, you get like a discount on eBay fees if you sell it to them. Stuff like that.
There is every advantage to using the PSA Vault. There is no disadvantage whatsoever. In every way, it's superior. The only disadvantage is we as human beings want to hold our treasure in our own hands. But then you got to go to work. Then you got to put it in your house somewhere.
Yeah, you can't. Well, I mean, you can't. A lot of people like to showcase their stuff on a wall or something like that. You can't do that.
Right.
Print off a picture. So, I mean, comics are art. So art is meant to be hung like this. So there is that. The downside of the vault is, like you said, it kind of takes away the art of comic books in the way of like hanging it on your wall and stuff like that, and puts it more as a commodity.
But for the future, for the safety of the collectible itself, we live and die as human beings. All the research I've done regarding paper, I've seen there's a tremendous disconnect as to how long it'll last.
A long time.
In our holders, the holders we have designed, you can look at paper lasting a millennium. So unless there's a World War III and everything gets blown up, people think it's going to disintegrate in 50 or 100 years. No, it will. If you arrest the conditions that are conducive to damage, that item will last a millennium. For instance, our cases are UV reflective.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 99 point something. I can get you the stats on that, but we've covered every area on our case to make it the most superior product. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so if UV protected, that's just basically blocks out a lot of the sun and the sun damage. Would that block out fade? A lot of times people hang this on their wall and maybe a window hits it. I don't know.
Yeah.
That might be, it will, or you don't know.
Yeah, we all know there's sun damage, UV damage, and certain colors will
fade more
than others. And fading is a killer. Like if you've got a near mint 9.4 and you put it on your wall and you don't have a UV reflective case, in 2 years, less than that, in 6 months, for the one summertime, it's going to fade. And now fading's hit pretty hard because it's color loss.
Yeah.
So that 9.4 after a year can be down to an 8.5 to 9.
Reds get hit the hardest.
Yeah, and then you come on down this, year after year after year. I've seen mile highs that are trash because of that. So
that's
cool, dark, dry environment.
Yeah.
The case we
dig a hole and put it in the ground in a cement slab.
No, I think this is not just saying it because I want to drum up business. I have no effect on that, and I get nothing from it. The PSA vault would be the very best place to put it. If you want to realize the best for your investment. Now, if you're a collector who wants to put them on their wall and have them, that's cool.
Yeah.
Use our case because it's UV reflective, okay?
That is nice. That is nice to have. I know a lot of people have asked about having something like that just for that. There's a lot of people that love to showcase. I mean, me being a YouTuber, they love to showcase their wall of collectibles. And so not everyone is as savvy and knows about like, you know, the sunlight and stuff like that. So having that protection, even if it's some protection, is beneficial in the long run for people that love to showcase their stuff on their walls.
Right. There's logic involved. Comic book shops are notorious for this. Back in the 1970s and 80s, they would, you know, tack 1970s, they take a thumbtack and tack up the top of the bag, and there's your book hanging on the wall, and they don't think about it, but they don't have curtains, or it's open all day to the sun, and every day the sun goes by, and all of a sudden that cool book that you saw 2 years ago is now all
Faded.
and it'll get hammered in professional grading.
So let's talk a little more about your case. So there's been a lot of different ideas floating around about the case. There's been a lot of like scam stuff. So the case is very important to people. So why don't you took all that into account. When you got the job, you told your higher ups to have some consultants such as me and my brother. So we came down there and we gave our input on the case, and they have changed some stuff. So why don't you talk a little bit about the case, how it's different, what are some new features, some better features than the typical cases that are out there now?
Okay. We've got a brilliant engineer in Brian. I'll talk more about him probably at another time, but he took on the project and wanted to come up with a case that is superior in every way that's necessary. And what's necessary is when you take competitors' cases and at a drop of 5 feet, just 5 feet.
Which I did a whole video on dropping those cases.
Okay.
And you can see them.
But if you drop it from 5 feet on a concrete or just on, you know, the indoor-outdoor carpet and there's concrete underneath, you drop it from 5 feet where the bottom of the comic book is at 5 foot height, and you hit a corner, it explodes. I mean, it shatters and pieces go flying. And if you drop it if you have a rectangle and you drop it on the edge, it'll crack pretty badly, but you'll get what's known as a cleavage. It buckles. The energy has to go somewhere. So when it hits the ground, the energy then goes back upwards and hits the comic book. Sounds weird, I know. But all of a sudden, that comic book that's nice and flat gets buckled. And you'll have, sometimes it's just bends, and other times it's actual cracks that you can see in the color, and sometimes it's just trashed and ripped. We've tested every case, and we've tested our case, and for everything you can possibly imagine, including security features. And I have to say that the PSA case is magnificent.
So what you're saying is very strong, but it's not. So like me being like an auction house and stuff like that, I get consignments all the time, and so many times I'll get the number one crack case I get is CGC. They're shattered sometimes, and that's why I did that whole video on how strong this case is. And they're just very brittle. And the thing that sucks about it is like you'll get all these like little tiny cracks everywhere. So what you're saying is the PSA case is not brittle like the CGC case, and it's more durable. So if you did drop it, which happens, it'll be more, I guess, durable and like more, what's the word, like more rubbery in the sense of like, not rubbery,
it's
but
pliable. You're
pliable.
looking for pliable.
Yeah.
Pliability lends itself. People would think that it's not as strong. Well, no, that's not true. It's actually, our case is stronger from an impact straight on if you have a flat book. It's stronger that way. It's stronger from an impact on all edges, on all corners. And
is it bulletproof?
No. Not bulletproof. Sorry. Maybe we get Elon into this. Won't take a bullet.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun thing to do. Let's shoot some comic
I
books.
did want to do that I want to see how many bullets each case could take. Like if I lined up like 100, how many would it take to stop a bullet?
Right.
Okay, so it's more durable. What about tamper-proof? Because there's been a big, like maybe like 6 months to 8 months ago, whenever it was, there's a big controversy about how people they would use a heat gun, just a heat gun they could buy off a Home Depot or Amazon.com, heat it up, and they would just switch out a label or switch out the book with the label, And I always thought like it was a little too easy, but I never even thought about doing it myself. But then, this person literally just used a heat gun. So to that end, I remember talking to you and the higher ups about this very thing. So you guys have done testing on it and things like that. So run through like the difference of your case, like how it is different from the other cases.
First off, it's just like with computers. There's a lot of bad people out there. Mm-hmm. This might sound stupid from my vantage point by saying something like that, but there's a lot of very bad people out there that are trying to steal your cars, your computers, your valuables at home. So when it comes to a case, there were some very terrible things done at a particular company I won't name, where the people that were actually working there were involved with
the insider
stuff. Yeah. So I'm naming no names, but because it's a clamshell product.
The other previous, or which one's a clamshell?
The other competitor cases are clamshell products. Basically, the comics put into a blister pack. We call that the inner well. It's a blister pack, and it's dimensionally designed to hold different thicknesses of comic books and different size dimensions. But in the end of the day, it's a blister pack that's sealed.
That's the inside softer plastic.
Yeah, and then that's set into an outer case, which then is sonically sealed.
And those just sit on top of each other.
Yeah, they come together like this.
Yeah, and then they're sealed.
Then they only seal certain parts.
That's true.
The whole thing's not sealed all the way around.
Yeah, that you'll see it on like a CGC case. It'll be like that thick by like that long on like the sides.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful idea. It's a wonderful invention. And if there were no thieves, it'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
But sadly, there are thieves. And so, as we saw on the, I think it was all this year and last year, people went crazy with heat guns and stuff trying to see if they can get the labels out. Why? I don't know. It's stupid.
Yeah.
But I guess to slip someone a book that's, a 3.5 and you got a 5.0 label, you just made a lot of money. Or if you got a...
It was mostly like Spider-Man 300, 238, 252. Those are the books he would take. The person would take a 9.6, put in a 9.8 label, send that back in the 9.8 again, get a 9.8, switch out a 9.6 or 9.4 or something like that. And he just did that like hundreds of times.
Go work at McDonald's and make more money. It's like
I don't know about that. Spider-Man 300 at the time was selling for like $5 or $6,000.
All the thought and thinking, and they can't go to bed at night because I hope they
I don't know.
I
think they could go to bed at night, but
that's terrible.
But they ended up getting caught, and now I think they're going to jail or something.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
It's not very wise.
Yeah,
but we have.
What are you in for? I'm in for murder. What are you in for? I stole comic books. What do you mean you stole them? Well, I regraded them a higher grade than they were before.
That's breaking the law.
Yeah.
But to set matters at rest here, no, you can't take our slab apart. It's not designed on a clamshell, fit-together process. So they are going to be harder to crack out. Sorry. Everybody wants it to be exactly perfect their way. Easy to crack out, but you can't crack into them to steal the label. No, ours are very hard to crack out.
Are the labels separate from the book, or are they both together in the, what do you call it, the blister pack?
No, we don't have a blister pack.
Oh, so
we designed something else, and I'm not allowed to tell.
Okay, so this is new to me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Brian's really smart.
Yeah,
he's a good engineer.
The good thing I will say is all this stuff happened, right? The CGC fraud stuff, all this kind of stuff. So by the time you designed your cases, all that stuff was already happening, so you could learn from that to make it better, going forward. So you're starting off with knowing all this stuff ahead of time.
There's a lot of theft in baseball cards.
Oh yeah.
There's theft in there's all kinds of gimmicks and scams that people have tried to pass off on the unsuspecting public. And
by the way,
yeah,
I never even thought this, but until you told me. Sports cards is 8 times the size of comics.
8 times.
How much bigger?
Keep going.
20 times?
It's like comics are on the floor and sports cards are way up on the roof.
It's so crazy. Like,
Well,
because I've been around comic books my whole life.
All cards, sports.
Oh, so trading and stuff like that.
Trading cards, sports cards,
Yeah.
the whole.
It's all about the Magic cards. But yeah,
It's a lot bigger than you can imagine.
Pokemon.
It's
It's huge.
way bigger than you can imagine.
it's so crazy because I always thought, oh, comic books, like, they have movies out. There's no like movies on baseball characters. I mean, there's like a couple. Like, is there? Oh, there's a Jackie Robinson movie that came out. There's a Michael Jordan Last Dance, but that's
There's
a
a
documentary.
lot of baseball movies that are wonderful.
No, about actual players. Like
Yes.
like how there's ones about Spider-Man. They don't get a sequel.
That's true.
They don't get multiple sequels.
They die.
don't like Jackie Robinson's the only movie I can think of that was like a big movie.
Yeah.
Like a blockbuster. They never come close to
You
like a
never
billion.
saw The Natural with Robert Redford.
First of all, is that a real person?
Robert is, but it was
Yeah.
a great movie.
I watched
Or what about
Oh.
Build It and They Will Come with Kevin Costner?
Oh, yeah,
What's that? Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
That's a great movie.
that was a great movie too. No, there was a
Angels in the Outfield.
No, stop.
Okay.
Kurt Warner. I saw his biopic. It was played by something Levy, the guy who played Shazam, Zach Levy.
Okay.
You know who Kurt Warner is?
Yeah.
Do you know his story?
No.
Fantastic story. I love the
Okay.
story. So he goes to college. He was going to be a quarterback. He gets drafted by the Packers. I believe it's the Packers. And so he's like, this is my whole life. I've literally done football. And now I'm getting drafted by the Packers. He gets cut. He's like the last person on. They do like summer training camp and they have a bunch of people and they whittle it down to how many people they're supposed to have. And he was like one of the last people to get cut. And so then he's like, okay, I'm going to go try out for this other team and all this kind of stuff. His agent basically dropped him because they just couldn't use him. And so he went back to stocking shelves in his hometown, like literally stocking shelves at a grocery store. And then, like arena football. So it's like a smaller field. It's less desired, stuff like that. They started that and they're like, hey, we need you to go on here. And they pay him like how many touchdowns you get. You get a bonus if you get a touchdown. So here he is, like much older. He's doing arena football and he's just destroying it. He was doing so good. He gets
Right.
picked up by the Rams, I believe. It was the Rams or something like that. But later, he's 30-something by this point.
Oh, that's really old.
Well, in football it is. And so he's a backup to their star player, this great quarterback. And so as a backup, you're not going to play, and especially this guy's a star.
Right.
Maybe the guy like hurts himself, breaks his leg or something like that, and is out. Kurt Warner brings him the Super Bowl, wins the Super Bowl. Or maybe he brought him the Super Bowl, and then the next year he won or something like
Right.
that. He ends up winning a couple Super Bowls. He ends up playing for like 10 years.
See, there are good movies.
Yeah, it's great. It's like that great underdog story. He was basically, you should watch it. It's a great movie.
And I look for more in the future.
Yeah. So, but I mean, he didn't get a sequel. There's no like, and he didn't break $1 billion.
Right.
So, like, to me, it's like, how is like Spider-Man is Superman and Batman and Spider-Man are more well known than any baseball player in the entire world. And I'm talking about worldwide. So to me, having comic books down there makes no sense. I don't get it.
I understand.
Well,
That's
I disagree.
because
The
more
simulation is not
expensive.
working out the way I want it
Well,
to.
they're more expensive than cards are
Comics are?
to make.
Oh. They're not. I know you have like a few cards that are in like the 20 million range. Like the Ty Cobb. Is that his name? What the hell is that?
Ty
guy's name?
Cobb, he's a baseball player.
Yeah, I know. What's that baseball? Todd
Honus Wagner?
Honus Wagner. Ty Cobb is a different.
T205 or
Yeah.
206? Can't remember.
212 or something. I don't know. There's one that's like that one's like 20 million or something like that.
Yeah, if you could find a high grade copy.
Someone got like a high grade and was on like
yeah,
golden.
Yeah, that'd go for that amount. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But how much would the top grade of an Action 1 or a Fantasy 15 go for? The one that's a 9.2 Action, and then there's a 9.6 Fantasy 15.
Well, here's the problem with
And take
comic
that back
books.
even one more. How much would the original cover go for? That would go for way more than any baseball card.
Well, there seems to be a ceiling. We found that out because I think it was the Kansas City copy of Action 1 came up and sold for $5 million.
That was the
this year.
8.5,
A5, yeah.
which is not the highest grade. There's a 9.2. There's a 9.0 and a 9.2.
Yeah, but still, that should have sold for a lot more. There just seems to be this ceiling on comics. That the ceiling's not there with cards.
But that art page by Mike Zeck sold for what, like 3 or 4 million? That was a splash page.
Yeah, 2 point something million. That was Yeah, I didn't understand
That was a spy. It wasn't even the cover. I think if you had the cover to Action #1, it would outsell any sports card out there.
Yeah.
Any sports, anything. I don't think there's anything that could beat a comic book thing.
I don't know.
Like, what else would there be? You could have, like...
We don't have the money in our hobby like other hobbies do.
But would the most expensive sports thing be a card, or would it be a memorabilia, like a baseball or...
It could be a jersey worn by a player that I think the jersey, it's either going to be sold where Ruth called a shot and...
Babe Ruth?
Yeah. And
Well, I know like there's like soccer jerseys that are really expensive now because soccer is worldwide.
that's an area that's going to get much bigger
It
in
is
the next
getting
decade.
bigger.
Much bigger.
So this is my point about comics. The Spider-Man that you fell in love with is the same Spider-Man I fell in love with. But the basketball, baseball people that you loved as a kid are not the same ones that I love as a kid because
Right.
they age out. They only have a lifespan. Average NFL player is 2.3 years. So like people only have lifespans for only a few years in their sports. Maybe if you're really good, you have a decade, unless you're LeBron James, and then you're going to be playing until you're 1,000, right? Just because he wants to break every single record there is. But in any case, I mean, that's the thing. Superman has existed for 100 years, nearly 100 years. And he's been the same Superman that multiple generations have liked. So to me, it's just like, I don't know. Like the only thing you think about is like Babe Ruth, but like Babe Ruth is only known to like actual baseball fans that really like even like old stuff. Like people know the name. You show a picture of Superman, everyone know who he is. Show a picture of Babe Ruth, 99% of people won't know who he is.
I agree with you. Yeah. Comic books have always done like this. It takes them time. It takes our hobby time to reach levels. There's a
Is it
lot
because
of,
it's more new?
it's not
I know
that.
it's existed for a long time,
a
but
lot of the sports
new
players.
money.
A lot of the sports players, like why are Michael Jordan's shoes so expensive?
Because he's the GOAT,
Yeah, I agree, but it's just a
not
shoe.
LeBron.
It's just a shoe. It's because there's a lot of people that are into sports. Sports has betting. Betting stimulates the
true.
product, and people don't realize that. There's more money in betting than anything else.
I talked to your boss about this. I was like, the thing is with cards, it's gambling. It's 100% gambling, right? You open a pack, you don't know what you're going to get. All of a sudden,
Right.
you could get that $1 million card, right? You could get the whatever it is, some jersey.
We don't
thing.
have that yet in comics.
We don't have it. And I told her, I was like, if you can create that, if you can create some kind of gambling aspect to it, then it would break open comics to a new level that no one's ever seen before. But it's just so hard to do it. Like, because cards are small, you get this nice little shiny pack, and you can open it up and you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And even Magic cards had a card, brand new, $2 million, brand new. You don't have no brand new comic book that's worth anything, like even like 10 grand. There's no 10 grand brand new comic book card.
Well, we did a project with Kith and Marvel that you'll see at the San Diego convention where there's a one-of-one comic book, and I won't say anything about it, but...
One of one comic?
Yeah.
Is it comic book size?
It's a comic book. So there are those opportunities,
It
but we
just
need
needs
to
to be-
create more, and I agree with that.
I have some ideas. I threw it in front of her, but I don't know if she's like, they're a grading company. They're not like, I really have to throw these ideas in front of like Marvel or DC. So Jim Lee,
Yeah.
you're right up the street.
So
Did you know Jim Lee was, he had his place down here in La Jolla
okay.
when he started Image, Wildstorm. I did a whole documentary on him. Very interesting. He threw wild parties where he would, he got a camel to show up to his party in San Diego. This is in the 90s. Like, how do you do that?
You ask the camel.
What do you
Sometimes they say
call,
yes. and-
go on the phone book and go? This is like pre-internet. It's like go on the telephone book and it's like exotic animals. Do you have any camels?
Addressing your issue earlier,
Sorry,
where
tangent.
comics are compared to sports, there are so many different facets of sports and other, cards that comics simply do not yet have, but they will. So people become impatient in this era. I come from the dinosaur age where if your book went up, 7% in a year through
Yeah.
the Overstreet Price Guide, I was like, yay. And everybody looked at me like, you idiot.
So
What-
how did back then? So to give you some perspective, back in your day when you were a comic book dealer,
It's still my day.
yes, you would just get the annual price guide. This is before Wizard,
Yeah.
which was monthly, and you would look and things would go up. How did Bob Overstreet, who created the price guide, how did he determine how much each book went up?
Okay. Information determines the market.
But there's no
Information is
internet.
power. Information is where the money's at. And we didn't have it back then. There was very few conventions. As a matter of fact, if you go to the era that everybody here has lived under, which was direct distribution and newsstand distribution, and people can understand the difference because there's a barcode at the bottom or there's a picture
Spider-Man's
in
face,
case
yeah.
you don't understand. But that's because a guy by the name of Steve Jeppe, big guy,
Diamond.
got it distributing comic books directly to the comic book shops. And so that's why there was a difference on them. But if you go before that, and you go into the older days prior to 1977 when they came up with those two designations, there wasn't much information. So Bob was a comic book collector. And there was actually a couple of attempts at a price guide prior to Bob Overstreet, but he stuck with it.
Bob was 70. The Overstreet was
1970. There was a price guide that came out that I know of in 1968, one that came out in 1969, and another one came out the same year Bob came out with his.
but they didn't last
Well,
long.
they didn't come out with a second and a third. You have to be annual, and it costs a lot of time and money. And he put his, blood, sweat, and tears into the Overstreet Price Guide, and it's real difficult. And it's funny if you pick one up. It's like Spider-Man #1 is always, that's $8. Spider-Man 2 through 10 is $1.50 in mint. That good.
So I have the original Overstreet price
Yeah,
guide.
but if you look at those through the years, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
How do you get the information? In the beginning, everyone hated the price guide. You only took the price guide when you went to go buy a collection because someone has this nice collection. You show them what it's worth in the price guide, and they're like, "Oh, okay."
So you're saying the price guide was no good because it put a ceiling on books.
Put a ceiling, but a very low ceiling for the first several years.
Yeah.
There was a very low ceiling, and it was ambiguous to grading. Nobody knew how to grade, so they put some. He tried to make an attempt in grading comic books because everybody is the captain of their own ship, and they think they know how to grade comic books, right? That's why today we have professional grading, which seems like
People didn't like CGC in the beginning as
No.
well. They didn't. And I don't mean CGC as a company. I mean CGC as in grading comics, like someone encapsulating and grading comics.
Right. Who are you to tell me what my comic book is? But
Yeah.
secondly, once you seal it in that coffin, I can never take it out and read it. That was a conundrum that was difficult to solve. So the first several years, it was the savvy investors that ate it up and submitted their books because they knew it was going somewhere. And sure enough,
Now it's the standard.
when you have an encapsulated product that is not dependent upon buyer or seller determining the grade, especially the seller saying, this is the fine. Oh, here comes the buyer. Okay. And he gets
It's like when buying and selling a house, you need an appraisal, like a third party
Right.
to come in and appraise it.
And so this opened up a market in conjunction with the internet, which sparked right around that time. Memory was really expensive. So to take a photo of your comic book was really expensive in the old days.
And a lot of people didn't have digital cameras to even upload.
No, and it just took so much memory. But it was the perfect storm to create the perfect recipe for success. All of a sudden, comic books opened up beyond the United States and Canada and a few UK shops. They opened up worldwide. You could live in Singapore and buy a comic book, and I know people that did,
Yeah.
or
I
in
have customers.
Taiwan,
Yeah.
and they would never trust it before because once you ship it over there, what do? Especially, if you're just Johnny comic book shop owner.
Well, one of the good things is, me growing up with having you as my dad, I understood like restoration and all that kind of stuff. But the average person doesn't know restoration. So they'll buy a book and it has color touch or it's trimmed or it's whitened or whatever, something like that. So having a graded comic book, as I explain to people, is like you take all that out. You don't have to have 5-10 years of experience on comic books to understand what restoration is, to understand how to find it, to where you can just get it. It's like, oh, it's a blue label, perfect. That's all you have to think about. So it's less guesswork for the consumer.
What set up the folly of restoration was it was approved by Overstreet, and that's what people don't realize. His initial, he was the law.
Bob Overstreet of
Yeah,
the Price
and
Guide.
in the Overstreet Price Guide, it stated that if you had a restored VF that was a VG before, then it's worth the fine price. And so everybody logically, we worked with that parameter.
Is that how it was?
Yeah.
Oh, that was the
Yeah.
price?
So if you had a near mint and it was a fine before, we would negotiate at the very fine price. And then the idea of how much restoration was done became the pickle.
Also, restoration was seen as a good thing
Yes.
because people would send it in to you to get restored or your brother to get restored, and that they saw it as like they are adding to it.
Right. Like, for instance, I bought a whole bunch of books from a company. I won't name the name, but they were all restored. I didn't know it. I had no clue. And then when I found out,
Does the company still exist? This would have been in the 80s.
and he explained to me, he says, Mark, it's just like, if, I sell classic cars and I rechrome the bumper, and I do this and I make it look the same, more beautiful, I get more money for the car. I said, oh, okay, that makes sense. So I came in under that kind of tutelage.
This would have been the 80s.
This is in the early 80s, yeah.
You started off as a restorer, right?
No.
I thought you went and you learned from some person. You like,
I was into art restoration in like 83, 84, 85, paintings and stuff like that. But I only brought it into comic books because in the Overstreet Price Guide, it said if you did that, and believe me, you can't restore very many books. It's time consuming. It's a waste of, there's no money in it. There's
none. It's a negative.
No, even back then there was no money in it. It's better just to buy and sell comics. And I learned that after a few years. But what really was the hurt was cleaning comic book covers. People would want their comic book covers cleaned, and then there was this, well, if you clean a cover, it's restoration. And eventually it jostled back and forth, and to the point when CGC came out, and I was I helped start up CGC back in 1998, a year before they opened. And
you're also an Overstreet Price Guide advisor.
Yeah.
From what, the 80s through?
Is at least 15 years, and I just kind of stopped. But the point I'm trying to make is that once they determined that cleaning would be considered a form of restoration, that changed everything.
Mm.
And so then you realize, okay, this is a no-no, you can't do that. Whereas prior to that, dealers loved to have it done because it made the books look nicer. So now it became a kind of a pickle. Okay, it's not good to do. So it was literally overnight stopped.
And people would call it the purple label of death.
PLOD.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so sadly, a lot of people sold their books and were hurt at that time, were frustrated, were angry as more and more books turned up restored. But eventually you go through that pain and you learn, and everybody learns, and everybody understands what you can and can't do to comic books and why you shouldn't do this to comic books for the longevity. Okay, when you're young, you don't know these things. But as you grow up, you mature. So,
And the market just shifted.
yeah, we determined that, obviously any type of color touch or repair would be considered restoration. We also determined the trimming, and trimming was something I never thought about. But,
I hate trimming.
well, yeah, it was more, it happened more with Silver Age books. But Silver Age books were new to me. I never thought about that.
They had the overhang, and they just, it gets a little...
Trim it off, right. And it made the book a little bit nicer. But you know what? Overall, when you look back on it, it didn't improve the grade, hardly at all. It
Yeah.
was stupid to trim books. So we know that nowadays, it's just listed as trimmed. And people can make their decision, do they want a trim book or not. Moving forward from 1999, when CGC opened its doors, it got the purple label of death, and it was like the scarlet letter, and people stayed away from it. And so there was this big fear. And so they were selling for literally 10 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, it was crazy how much they used to. Now they're not as bad.
No, because people are all over. That phase of life is behind us. More people came in, and it became absolutely stupid that you have this gorgeous VF restored book with minimal restoration, and you're saying it's a dog? That's stupid.
Yeah.
You know, now we're starting to understand this. And so the prices on restored books have gone way up. I've noticed that over the years.
I mean,
So-
they're not the same as a Blue Label,
Oh, no.
but depending on the restoration.
From where they were, though, they've gone way up. But everybody understands the parameters and the rules, whereas prior to, you're talking about professional encapsulation. Prior to that, the market was smaller in comic books. The hobby was smaller, much smaller. And
the deals were better.
Deals were better,
you
but
can get some good deals.
right. But now it's a worldwide market and a worldwide phenomena. And yes, it's not up where sports cards are or coins, but one day it'll get there. And I'm really proud. I'm really happy about that. It will get there.
I truly believe something has to happen in the modern comic book space, because the issue is there's just no valuable modern comic books. They tried to do the variant stuff, and every once in a while you'll get a variant that pops. But the problem is they do so many variants. You'll come out with a Superman 1, they'll redo Superman 1, and it'll be like 30 variants, because DC and Marvel
Right.
make their money when people like me, well, I don't do them, but like people, KRS Comics, right up the street from us,
Right.
they pay like almost 10 grand to get a variant made. And so then that's 10 grand that DC gets to make these variants for people. And then, KRS and other places, and they sell them, for like $15, $25 a pop. And so it used to be like, oh, the variants, but there's so many variants out there, it just like kind of floods the market. They need to do something. Comics need to do something with their modern stuff to make them valuable. I mean, if Magic the Gathering can get a $2 million card right out of the pack, then they should do something.
I
One
agree.
Ring. That's
There's some logic that needs to be put to this by a lot of people that are much more intelligent than I am. But there's a way to do this, and it will be done. It's not like it's going to stay this way forever.
Well, one of the issues is like, so what makes a comic book valuable? It's obviously supply and demand. That's basically all it is.
What makes it valuable is the story.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of demand for Spider-Man. He's a very popular character. And so what happens is everyone gravitates to Fantasy 15 or Spider-Man 1 or something like that. The problem with modern comic books is now the creators, back in the day, prior to Tom Farm, which I love what he did, but prior to them, Marvel owned everything. Right. So if you had a hit character like Venom, they owned the rights to it, so they pump it out as much. Now they're creator owned. So that means if I work for Marvel and I draw a character and it becomes someone with a hit, you know what I'm going to do all the time? Every time I do a book, I'm going to try to draw that character. But guess what happens? I'm on Spider-Man and I move to another book. I move to the Avengers. Well, guess what? The new person that is now drawing for Spider-Man, he's going to draw his character whenever he could. And so, because he wants to boost his character. So it becomes this thing where it's not about making the character great. It's about making my creation great, because that's how I get paid. And so that is kind of the downfall, but it's also the artists get their money and things like that. But and you don't want to draw someone else's character, because then they get money for it.
People collected comic books because they loved reading them. That was it, flat out. And there were cover collectors back in the old days. This is a killer cover. And I can't understand how it comes the same price as the one that's got a terrible cover. So
Spider-Man
that
33
eventually
is a good cover.
changed in the Overstreet Price Guide. You're getting back to how did we determine prices in the Overstreet Price Guide. I was very thankful to be included in that group that would meet every year at Bob Overstreet's home for a 3-4 day weekend.
You guys would argue, Hulk 181, nah, this should be $1,000 book. No, that's stupid.
Well, all we could do is look at what we saw was selling. Was it complete? By no means. It was very incomplete. So
how did like you said you wanted to determine what was selling? What sold books back then?
What sold books?
For example, you come out with a new TV show, someone's random first appearance starts selling, becomes hot, right? And you have the internet, and it creates buzz around certain characters, certain covers. Like back then, like in the 80s, what created buzz or demand? What made a book hot?
If you go back in time, what made a book hot more than anything else was you wanted to complete your run.
So it's like
there were more run collectors back in the day. So people were looking for back issues, and then people would catch the bug, where they would want to improve the quality, the condition of the issues they have, and so people would haunt the conventions and mail order trying to upgrade. But that's really what it was.
So it's mostly like runs and people.
That's why if you were a financial wizard back in the 1980s, you were putting your money into mutual funds and other areas where, at that time, hard to believe, they were getting 15 to 18% on their money. Comic books were giving you 5 to 7%. Why would you invest in comics?
Yeah.
You wouldn't. So comic book collectors actually enjoy their comic books. There was no real financial plus. The plus was, well, at least I didn't buy candy bars and go out and drink drinks. I put them into comic books so that when I get older, I have something to sell. Mm-hmm. And that happened all the time. Well, now it's different. Now we're in a market that's a financial market. The problem I see is that people are they want to make a lot of money fast.
Yeah.
And you have to be patient in any market and understand that if you try and drive the price up on any market too fast,
bam,
there's
traffic.
A ceiling, and you'll start getting this up and down, up and down, up and down,
Yeah.
like a stock market. And it's not like that.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me. Like I'll see random books get, like, for example, Dave Stevens. I don't know if you know the artist. He actually is from here. I did a whole thing about it. Oh, it's a crazy story. I'll tell you some other time. But
he's a fantastic artist.
Fantastic artist, by the way. Fantastic artist. He moved here and he did some Comic-Con stuff, and then, but anyways, his cover started skyrocketing, and I started noticing it, and so I happened to make a video all about it, how they were going up, which made it even go up even more. Yeah. But they have since. A book can't go from 2 years ago, go for $100, and then go up to $1,000, and you expect it to keep going up. Eventually, that market will soften, and it has softened, and they have come down. They're much higher than they were 2 years ago. Well, and I'm not even talking about the comic boom. I'm just talking about, like,
people are looking for the next best thing. And
yeah,
it's just like if you look at all the movies, the High Evolutionary in Thor,
no, Guardians of the Galaxy,
134.
Yeah.
Okay, but the series was longer than that. Once they knew he was coming out, it jacked up. Fantastic Four number 45 with the Inhumans. And then the series itself, the price is jacked up through the roof. Yeah. So did Black Panther, you name it. But what happens?
It drops.
It drops radically. And the reason why it's built on a false premise, the people don't want the book. They want to make money. There's a whole difference there.
Well, so this is the way I look at it. It's like, if you come out with a successful movie, or show or whatever, and there's a successful character, that will boost. Like, look at Rocket Raccoon, right? Mm-hmm. That book was a nothing book before he started coming out. You have him in Hulk 231, or 271 is his first comic book appearance. He appeared in Marvel Preview 4, which was a magazine.
Right.
But that was a nothing book. Probably just like, if you literally looked at the guide, it would skip over and probably not even mention him. Mm-hmm. But that book went up because people started attaching themselves to Rocket Raccoon. But that's how you build up.
He was a great character. He is a great character.
Bradley Cooper voices him. But that built up over time after movie after movie. And what happens is someone watches the movie and they're like, oh, he's such a great character. One day I'd like to own his book. And so you buy his book, and then it's a supply and demand. All of a sudden the demand goes higher. But yeah, like you're saying, some people jump into it and they're like, oh, there's some rumor that some random character is in some thing, and I'm going to buy up as many as I can and then try to flip them for more, and then it starts going up, and then there's really no demand because it's really just dealers buying from themselves.
Right.
Like flippers is buying from this, hoping that they'll go even higher.
But that tells us something. That tells us that our market is naive and has tremendous room for growth. I see comic books going far, far higher than they are right now.
And so you mean like the top end stuff? Or are you talking about the middle of the road stuff?
Across the board.
Even the moderns?
Even what?
Even the moderns.
Across the board. And the key is we found that professional grading allows for liquidity that was unknown before, because it gives a flat, level playing field to everybody involved. The auction houses have been the big winners in this, making monster, companies by getting involved with comics. And it was a good thing. And I see in the future it just going up higher. We're going to have lulls. And what people today don't understand is lulls scare them.
You've been in this business. You've been through how many
the worst
highs and lows?
Oh, yeah. it's not a big deal. You know, here's what I learned: when things go down in value, buy them.
Mm-hmm.
And get them professionally graded. I can't say that enough. Uh, if you had 10,000 books and you professionally graded them all, and you think, how am I going to make my money back? Don't worry about it.
Well,
They're arrested. They're like in time capsules.
I will push back on that because I advocate many times not everything needs to be graded because it's not worth it to be graded.
I don't think so.
So you're telling me if you had a brand new Spider-Man comic book and you read it and there's a 9.0, that's worth grading?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, here's
I
why.
don't think so. I disagree.
In a holder, in a proper holder, it's going to last, like I said,
But
centuries to millennia.
But there's this thing called what I call case cost. And that's the cost where it says to send it there, insurance back and forth, get it graded, all that kind of stuff is more valuable than the actual comic that you're grading. Then it doesn't make sense to do it.
Yeah, I can see that point, and I see a lot of people have stored massive collections. I've looked at a lot of massive collections over the years. Some of them were funny because they stored them and they're real cheap, so they didn't put them with backer boards and they're all bent, or they put them in a box that was shorter than the comic and they're all flattened over. I've seen hundreds of thousands of comic books damaged. You know, put it in, you know, lockers in Texas in the heat every year. It's an aluminum building, and the things are brown as you can imagine. So when you properly store them, if you're looking for a fast, quick, easy way to make money, no. But if you're looking at the long term, yes, it's very well worth it.
Yeah, I also tell people what grading does is it has two modes of protection. Protects your value, your investment, whatever it is you want to call it, and physical protection. So those are the two things it gives you.
Where we're lacking is this. It's like, okay, you have a print run of a particular comic book, and you say, is it worth grading? And you say, well, there's 20,000 copies out there. It saturates the market. No, it isn't. There's 8 billion people in this world. As time moves forward, we're going to find that we're a more interconnected world. There'll be more people involved with the hobby, and there won't be enough supply to meet the demand. That's going to happen. It couldn't have happened early on prior to the internet, when you had these various shows at different quadrants in the United States popping up, and you had to somehow find it in your local paper or just be in the know. Oh, there's a convention coming to town. We're on the internet now. We've got smartphones, and that's just going to technology will continue to improve, and the outlet for collectibles, including comic books, will only improve.
So I have a theory, though, with future comics, though. I think we're going to get a whole bunch more comic books being made and designed, because I think what's going to happen is AI art is going to take over artists. And so Marvel and DC will be able to get the royalties, because right now you have to pay royalties to artists. They'll get the royalties, and which will make it cheaper to make a comic book, which means they will make more of them. I think more different titles, more, maybe not more volume in print runs, but just more different titles, because they can take that chance on, hey, I want to do a Rocket Raccoon and a Thor, book. That would never get made now, but let's do that.
That's
because
kind of like manga is, where you have they've got print runs in the millions, and they come out every week or 2 weeks, and they're throwaway products. They're giant, they're thick, and they're left on a bus when someone gets off the bus, because there's no real value to collecting them.
Now, is PSA going to grade manga?
I can't speculate on that. I don't know.
Okay. Because I know, wasn't CBCS doing that?
Yeah, they're doing that.
Yeah.
But my point is that we've seen through manga that you can have print runs that completely ours look like diminutive little dwarfs compared to what they're printing. And that's just in Japan, So what can happen is we could explode. But here's the problem. The costs in America, or the shipping costs if we print them outside of America and bring them in, is too expensive for kids. So it's not a kid's hobby anymore. So what we're doing is
comic books are not.
We're eliminating the kid factor. And where you get the endearment and the love for the hobby is a child reading the stories and wanting to be like that character.
And then when they're older, they revisit their past.
And they revisit it. So we're robbing the children of it by making it too expensive and too adult oriented. And I have to put my 2 cents in there because we've become an adult oriented world saying anything goes.
Well, you know how that started. 1970, Green Lantern number 76, Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil. They're like, we grew up kids, we want to make comics for adult. Started the Bronze Age.
Yeah, the underground happening in the late 60s and 70s. But I'm saying is that the greatest power force that exists is to put into a child's mind the love and desirability of the product that makes them feel good about themselves. Like when I look back and I read Spider-Man, I used to be a very skinny little kid that was picked on quite a bit. And I read Spider-Man, and there was justice. There was a skinny little kid that became a superhero. It gave everybody hope. He had a conscience.
Drawn by Steve
always
Ditko.
Trying to do the right thing. The same with the Fantastic Four.
Not in the beginning, Dad. Not in the beginning. He was all out for himself, and it wasn't until Uncle Ben died
That's
that he
the first
changed.
issue.
I'm just telling
He
you.
was a broke kid and wanted to make money.
Yeah.
But my point, he didn't steal or anything. My point
He let
is,
the criminal go. And then the criminal, what happened? He killed his Uncle Ben.
Right.
All because he wanted money, and the guy gypped him.
But that made him become Spider-Man.
Exactly.
My point
without
is,
tragedy, you cannot be a hero.
Right. My point is that when you make comic books geared in such a way that they give hope and endearment and a loyalty to it, those children will grow up to become adults and want to be in the hobby for those reasons.
But would you say that comic books are a product of their current environment? Meaning, if it feels hopeless in society, that the comics reflect that, because that's how it was in the 90s. They were reflecting
type.
They were reflecting what was going on in society. So if there's no hope in comic books now, that's just saying there's not as much hope in society.
Right. So what we need is, we always think it's cool when someone gets blown up, beat up, shredded, and you name it, and the endings are very dark and
Yes, that's
terrible.
what I like that stuff.
Okay, but it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah, it's not like a Kurt Warner story.
Doesn't give you hope, right? Everybody knows that there's no price you can put on hope. And I hope eventually they find their way back. Right now, comic books are, I understand they got to make money. Everybody's got to feed their family, and that make the comic books. But they're trying to put as many X-rated people on the cover as possible.
Because that's what kind of sells now.
You want to, well, go buy a Playboy. I mean, this is comic books.
Playboy doesn't put naked women anymore.
I know. Playboy's more tame than the comic books. But they're shooting themselves in the foot by doing that. But
well, I was talking to some people that make variant covers, and they said that the thing that sucks is unless we put like their character that's like half naked on there, it doesn't sell as well, because the demographic is like 25 men.
The demographic is they lost their golden ticket. The demographic should have always been young children becoming adults.
Yes.
And if they would have remembered that, instead of trying to make it all adult, they'd have another generation coming up, and then another generation.
But you could blame most of that on the 90s. That's when it all started. That's when, you had Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, stuff like that, Jim Lee. I'm not saying in a negative way, but they were drawing more scantily clad, more egregious, more, just in your terms, X-rated stuff. And then that kind of stuck. And then it's kind of always been like that since.
I don't need to hammer this to death, but if we don't give our children hope, we don't give hope to the future of this particular collecting, this hobby. It's we're not giving it any real hope, and we need to do that. But that has nothing to do with the conversation today. We kind of got way off in left field.
Okay, I'll bring it back around.
Okay.
So big thing that a lot of people want to know about: 9.9s.
9.9.
9.9. That's what people want to know about. So I will give you my experience. Being an auction house, getting consignments in all the time, I see many different comic books graded by, gotten graded by other people. And I will get in a book, And I'm like, okay, I guess that's kind of a 9.8.
Do you have air conditioning here?
Yeah, it
I'm
is.
like sweating.
Is it still? I put it on. Maybe Thomas turned it off.
I think he did.
Oh.
Did he leave?
Yeah.
Did Uncle Scrooge turn up the air conditioning 1 degree?
No, I think it's on a timer. So after like a certain, whatever, 5 o'clock or something like that, it like automatically turns off.
I hear it.
Going. Okay.
So we get 1 degree of cool. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
But anyways, so I'll get books in all the time. And I'll look at a book, it's like a 9.8 and it has like, a couple spine dings or something like that. Then I'll get another book in, or I'll send in a book myself. And I'm like, this is flawless minus like one tiny little spine ding. And it just, I know going in, I'm never going to get a 9.9. So it's like, whatever, I don't care. But it's just absurd to me that you can have a near perfect book and it's not even a 9.9. They put the array of 9.8s is like this big, right? It's huge. It's huge of how many, and I know that CGC recently has come forward and said we're going to give out more 9.9s, and they have, because like it's like so far this year they've given out 4 times as many 9.9s as they had all of last year, and we got a 9.9 for the first time in almost forever. So, what is PSA's, which is basically your stance on 9.9s going forward?
9.9 is mint grade. What else you want to know?
So, what is your stance? Are you going to be stingies? Like CGC over there, when a book should be a 9.9, and I think CGC did that on purpose so they can always go back later and regrade everything again and get all this money.
Right, it brings money into the coffers, and when you go through that miracle COVID time, which was deadly for humanity, but for some reason it brought the collectibles field into the forefront, and they were way behind. Everyone hired more graders. Which improperly trained. There's mistakes being made constantly. And when COVID was over and the big dollars slowed down, a lot of people lost their jobs. So you want to know what a 9.9 is. We call that a mint minus, from near mint to mint minus to mint. Those are nomenclature grades that go way back into the 1960s. Look up the term nomenclature in the dictionary, and you'll understand. You're trying to put a name, a verbality to a numeral. But how do you explain the numeral?
But I understand what a 9.9 is.
Really?
What I'm asking you is, are you guys going to be stingy with your 9.9s?
Stinge has nothing to do with accuracy.
So what you're telling me, I feel like, in my personal opinion, I don't know if this is a fact, but I'm pretty sure it's true, that CGC purposely puts the stamp, the hand down, and won't give out 9.9s. They don't want to. They're easing up now. But if the book is a 9.9, and it deserves a 9.9, which I've seen plenty, but I just know CGC is never going to give me one, at PSA, if a book is a 9.9, are you going to give it a 9.9? AKA, are there going to be more 9.9s out there? Because there's a lot of 9.9s.
Also known as, is there more books out there? What? I think that was the wrong term to use.
Okay. Also, there's more 9.9s out there that are purposely being put down as a 9.8. All I'm saying is
I have to say this. If you have 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30 years, 40 years as a grader, it's meaningless in professional grading. As a matter of fact, it can work against you. And that's what people don't understand.
But I'm just not no average grader.
That's what everybody says.
Well, I'll put it this way. Who trained me?
I did.
Who trained me?
I trained you when you were a little kid.
And who are you?
Little
the
kid.
head grader at CBCS.
My point,
you were also started CGC, and now the head grader at PSA. And what do you know?
I looked at a book that I had a question with that was so badly graded, and the guy told me that he said, I have 40 years experience in this hobby. I stand by my grades. And I was like, okay. Then your cup already filled up and you don't want to learn a damn thing. Mm-hmm. There has to be an understanding that we all don't know everything. And professional grading is completely different than people think. A lot of times people want to say it's an art. It's only an art in how we mentally put together the picture we just saw of the comic book. It's mostly mathematics. but people interpret it as an art form, I guess you'd say. Why does this person as a professional grader understand more than me? And that little guy has been in the business for 15 years and I've been doing this for 35 years. Who is he to tell me what's what?
Mm-hmm.
It's because he understands professional grading. And you say, it was a secret? Yeah, you learn a lot that I didn't know existed. So when you say, am I going to be stingy and not give 9 nines? I'm going to retort right back and say, I will be accurate and honest, completely accurate and honest with every book, and I will give it what it deserves. That's the best answer I can give. The problem is the nuances of what a 9.9 is. What does it look like? What kind of defects can it have? We try and spell that out. Like in the Overstreet Price Guide, I helped write the very first grading guide in 1992, the 100-point system that Gary Carter figured out and trained me on, and then we worked on these books together. I also worked at the Sotheby's auction, and that first 100-point system was brought in to bear, and it became a problem. How do you tell the difference between an 83 and an 85? Nobody knows. It was too broad. When I was flown in to help start up CGC, you got to remember it was the coin company, NGC, and they decided to branch out, of which Steve Borick was chosen to be the first head grader, president, started from scratch. We had to hammer out a system. We had on the one hand, we had nomenclature grades, good, fair, fine,
Mm-hmm.
VG fine, VG plus, VG plus plus plus.
They used to even
fine
put
plus.
that on the CGC label. Now it's just kind of gone.
The whole idea was you needed to remove a generation in order to accomplish a numerical grade without the help of a nomenclature grade. So in the beginning, it was fine 6.0 with the hope that eventually we wouldn't need the fine anymore.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of a nomenclature grade? Well, it only satisfied and soothed the graders that had learned that system all their lives. Well, we're going away. We're passing away, and we're passing the torch on. It'll become a numeric system only, in eventually, just like cards. So,
which makes sense, honestly.
Right. They and cards
still put
use
mint, EX,
yeah,
excellent mint, and I'm like,
what
what
they
is
use
this?
mint and near mint mints, but eventually that'll all drop.
Oh,
but,
that's what I have to ask. So, one thing I do love that your previous company did, not CBCS, but Beckett that owns it, they, when you get a 10-0, they gave a special label. It was black and gold. I personally loved it.
I love it too.
Are you guys going to give
I think it's a very handsome holder.
Black and gold for 10-0s? Like, have like a special...
We're not sure yet. We're still...
Or some differentiate.
We're opening up for actual grading in January.
January, so that's when people can submit?
2025. And we're still looking at things.
Please do it. Please do it. And it was like metal, like brushed metal look, and I was like, it makes it look like this is something special.
Gem, yeah, I know. I agree. We'll see where we go with
What about
that.
subgrades?
Well, let's address your first question about a 9.9. It's almost like, how do you know? When someone sends in a book, it's funny, and I was the same way. Again, I told you that I helped start up CGC with grading, with criteria, with restoration, what's acceptable, what's not, and we took a nomenclature scale, and we took the 100-point scale, and we merged it and created a 10-point scale with, I think, 27 grades total when you add them all up, And they've been improved upon since. So when you come to a term as like 9.9, what does it mean? If you look in the Overstreet Price Guide, you are trying to interpret data and apply that data to your comic book, and everybody thinks they're good at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally different doing it in person, 3D real, as opposed to trying to impress what you've learned onto and that system onto a comic book.
Well, this is why the thing that bugs me is the reason why I know CGC is being stingy is because
stingy. Okay.
Yeah, stingy is because every modern book that gets in there is pretty much flawless. You look at the census; it's pretty much all 9/8. Like 10,000 and a 9.8, 0 at a 9.9 or a 10.0. And it's like, you're purposely doing this.
Okay.
Like, there's got to be something that
Yeah.
could, I get a 10.0 because that has to be perfect. But there are difference between, like, I just get them in. I see the difference between different 9.8s. And I'm not saying that.
Can I explain when you have a multiplicity of graders that are not the same human being? Some people are only allowed to grade modern and new books, while other people are grading the Silver Age, more valuable, and Golden Age books. And so you're filtering through thousands upon thousands and thousands of books. And especially, I mentioned again during COVID time, how do you get those books out the door? Well, 9.8 is a safe grade.
Would it be
Let
if
me
you
finish
give
this
someone
up.
a 9.9, it bumps it up to higher value, so therefore someone else would have to grade it. So therefore the people that are in charge of grading it can legally in their company not give out a 9.8 or 9.9 because it would put it to the next level.
Yeah, I've been the recipient of 9.8s that are no better than a 9.2, and
Yeah,
I've been
so
the
have I.
recipient of 9.8s that are solid 9.9s and possibly a 10. So this is where pro grading, where the rubber meets the road, I guess you'd say. A 9.9 is an amazing book. It really is. When you order books from your distributor and they come to your comic book shop in a box, and you open up that box, you'll find that you may have no 9.9s.
Yeah.
You have a lot of 9.6s, a lot of 9.8s. You might even have a rogue 9.4 and even a 9.2 work at the corner bit. You have a spine, for instance. Most of your defects on brand new books are going to be at the spine simply because the spine is touching the cardboard box. And during shipment, there's a sandpaper element.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Being placed in the box, there's a wear element. Being printed, we have what's called bindery tears, bindery scuffs, right there at the printer. Even if you pull them off, you'll notice tiny defects on some books. Again, then there's production damage, there's production problems that are sometimes overlooked up to 9.8, but they're not overlooked at 9.9 and higher. That's why there's that great disconnect between the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's distribution damage by handling, by whatever means, however they came to the shop. And then there's the damage from the shop owner or employee pulling them out of the box and then placing them in bags for sale. Tiny scrapes, tiny dings, tiny wear that may be imperceptible that you don't notice, but when the grader gets in his hand, or her hand, they see that.
But I get the difference between a 10.0 and a 9.8. I'm talking about a 9.8 and a 9.9. You're looking at a 0.1 difference.
It is.
It should be less of a difference between a 9.8 and a 9.6.
But a 9.8 has tremendous grace given to it than a 9.9 doesn't. For instance, on a 9.9, if you have we have to use the words virtually perfect because we're working with human beings and their interpretation of what they see in front of them without the help of a lens. We use lenses at times, but so you see a virtually perfect spine. There's no bumps, there's no dings, there's no spine stress whatsoever. And you go, wow, that's an amazing spine. And then you look at the very top and you can see where there's a little bit of wear where, let's say, a perfect bound book that's glued cover over the interior as opposed to the saddle stitch with this stapled on the spine. So you notice that there's a little tiny wear at the very top on the very edge of the spine. Well, we know it's not a 10.0.
Yeah, there you go. Not a 10.0. It could be a 9.9.
Yes, it can. But then we go to the bottom and we find the same wear.
But I've seen wear on the top and the bottom corners in a 9.8, and then it'll have like 3 spine dings,
Right.
and then I'm like, okay, what if you got rid of those two
The
things?
lower the grade, there's more grace within the parameter. I
Yeah.
hope you understand that. Like the difference between a good and a very good is 1 grade. You could say GVG or 3, 2, 3,
Yeah.
3.5, 4, 2.5. It's all in there. But say there's a tremendous amount of grace between those grades. A 4.0 looks totally different than a 2.0. I hope you understand that. And there's a lot of defects that can be, on that book before it drops from a 4.0 to a 3.5 and a 3.5 down to a 3 and so forth and so on. And you're taking into consideration pages, foxing. There's so many things that you may not see when you're looking through the case that exists within that book. There could be a 3-inch tear on one of the pages. You don't. There's just so many things, and since CGC doesn't give notes,
No, they do give notes.
in many instances they don't. They weren't. They were trying to get away from it entirely.
Anything on top grades, they don't give notes.
Right. So, for instance, when you get your book, let's go back up to the high grade. You get your book in the mail, and it's a 9.8, and there's no notes, and you have no clue.
Yeah, there won't be
So,
any notes.
so you're left clueless as to why it wasn't a 9.9 or a 10.0. And so you look at it, you maybe send it out to be pressed, you do everything you can, it comes back and you go, son of a gun, it's a 9.6. What the heck happened? I spent,
That happens.
$50 for pressing and shipping both ways. And what happened? Well, we're working with humans at different points of time, at different times of the day, at different eras.
That's the key. You're working with humans.
Yeah.
Another reason why robots should be here.
Well, AI is going to screw up so much until they get it right.
Have you seen that card grading machine that uses like AI and it grades your card and you put it in there?
It is so far from being practical that it's not going to work. It's with comics, it's not going to work for decades because it's a multi-sided product with
Pages.
so many. Yeah. So you're going to need a human. So graders are going to be needed for decades. But anyhow,
5 years.
the difference between a 9.6, a 9.8 and a 9.9 may be imperceptible. But once you show it to someone, they can't unsee it. And then they go, oh, okay. Now, are all graders equal? Not all graders are equal.
Nope.
Are all graders equal on every moment of every day? No, they're not.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a disparity. Is that a word?
Disparage. I don't think so.
Disparaging? No, forget it. Erase.
I don't think it's
There's going to be a difference. Let's
disparage between. Disparage.
There's
right?
going to be a difference in grades.
Yeah.
With the same grader at different points of the day, depending on.
He's tired. I always tell him
Not
like
tired. It's like sometimes you don't notice a little glint that catches your eye, because no matter how well lit your area is, you might not notice sometimes a certain bend, and then you notice it the next time around.
Can you give, since you're a grader at CBCS, can you give me just like a brief rundown of basically what your duties were, what you did, like as like a head grader or head finalizer, like how many books were you in charge of grading in a day?
Had to make coffee for the people, had to clean the desk. No, I'm kidding.
The toilets?
Toilets, yeah. No. How many per day? That depends on the era of the book. You can always grade newer books much faster and easier than you would an older book, because there are so many problems. People don't realize how many problems exist between the pages.
Yeah.
Not just page quality, but there's a lot. So, you're given a stack. We work in stacks. Sometimes you can get through 150 a day. Sometimes you can get through 300 or 350 a day. It just depends on the workload, the type of books, the defects. It's hard. People think it's easy. It's hard work.
You're a finalizer, so what happens if someone else graded it and then gave it to you, and then you would finalize the grade, right? Is that what that means, finalize?
You're going to either give it the same grade, or you're going to lower it, or you're going to raise it.
Okay.
Those are your three options.
Yeah. So at CBCS, at least pass through two hands. Two grading hands.
Sometimes a lot more than that.
How many hands is it going to pass through a PSA? What's the process going to be like a PSA?
It's going to be the same system. You have to have an undergrader. You have to have someone, and a grader can only do this, that knows how to handle. You got to count the pages. You've got to look at those things on the inside. And then even after they count all the pages and look for things, it's just the nature of who I am. I do it again. Mm-hmm. I don't mean to do it, but I want to make sure there's no defects on the interior, no coupons clipped, little tiny coupons, or someone ate a tomato back in 1941 and their seeds, You know, there's just little things. I've seen everything you can imagine inside comic books.
I found this. I did a whole video on it. I found a clipping from, it was a Spider-Man 129, and I found a newspaper clipping, and I saw the picture. It was a Miss Universe winner. Someone clipped it out, put it in there from the same year. I decided to look that person up. Crazy history. Like, it turns out she had an affair with a race car driver, this person, so they took her crown away. She was the first one to win a crown, and 3 weeks later they took the crown away, and it was like this, she ended up marrying this like newscaster person, like all this, like I went down through this huge rabbit hole of just like this newspaper clipping that someone stuck in there, probably thought she was attractive and put it in there, and I still have it. I did a video on it. It was pretty interesting.
That is the wonderful thing about collecting. I once found an old it was from 1780 something, from the colony of Connecticut, paper money, inside of an old book. And so I went down this rabbit hole trying to figure out what it was. You know, then you're always curious, how much is it worth?
Yeah, I still have that clipping. It's a great little memory. Yeah. I went to a museum, and they had an exhibit of old books. From like the 1300s and 1400s, when they had to handwrite everything else, and they had those like gorgeous like drawings, like those picture drawings of stuff, and they paint them in gold and all sorts of stuff, and they all held up pretty well. But I was like, these are, each one had to be hand drawn, hand painted,
right?
And they're very from all years and all different cultures. It was very interesting. I have a bunch of pictures I'll show you later, but very cool.
So anyway, we will give out the appropriate grade with due diligence, and
also the
honest grade.
Also, didn't you say that every book I send in is an automatic 10-0, right? That's our deal.
Right.
No. Oh, actually, you saved me the 11-0. I get an 11-0 on everything I send in. Automatic 11-0.
The understanding the terminology and somehow turning that into a numerical grade has been a stumbling block for a long time in our hobby. It's getting better. People are learning. I love professional grading because it has taught everybody what a 4.0 is, what a 5.0 is, what a 6.0. They'll get a book from one of the companies, and they'll look at it, and it says 5.5 on it. And they go, "What's a beautiful book?" I said, "Yeah, 5.5 is a beautiful book. It really is." You know, when I collected comic books, everybody that collected comic books, we had VGs and goods.
Yeah, there was, because you read them.
You know, so everybody's got near-mint-itis today because that's where the money is, and I understand that.
Near-mint-itis.
Near-mint-itis, yeah. But you get a book in a 5.5, 6.0, 6.5. They're beautiful books. They really are, and that's what I love about our hobby. You get a beautiful 6.0 in a case. It's wonderful.
So here's a question.
I think they're undervalued.
The lower
I think they're tremendously undervalued. You know, I think it's crazy. Like,
it depends what it is.
Oh, you take name the Spider-Man from the early days. Any issue from.
You're talking about Silver Age.
Yeah, any issue.
Oh, I tell people all the time, like, if you're going to invest in one type of book and you don't have very much money, get Silver Age Spider-Man.
Undervalued.
Silver Age Spider-Man. That is like the best that you can get.
Oh, you pick up people say, "Oh, it's only a 5.5, or it's only a 6.0, or it's only a 5." I go,
that is the best
that's
investment.
That's a great book.
I always put Silver Age Spider-Man on top of my list every year. Silver Age Spider-Man. It doesn't matter what you get. Silver Age Spider-Man.
We're going to grade. We don't just give the grade for the book and put it into a holder that it'll last for a millennium. We're not just that. We've checked it for restoration. We've checked it for different
coupon cuts out.
Has it been married? Has someone tried to replace a page? All this is done for you at a price that's so incredibly cheap.
Yeah, that's what I tell people.
It really is.
Like I was saying earlier, it's like it saves you decades of research and knowledge that you don't have to do, and you just send it in, and it eases up that.
I don't care if it's a Spider-Man number 53, Doc Ock on the cover, all right? That's a new book to me. Sorry, guys, it's a new book. I think it's 67. Okay, so that's a new book. Anyway, but if you got a beautiful looking find, or the first Shocker, I think that's number 47 or 6. 46. Anyway, I love that book when it came out on the newsstand. You got a beautiful find? That's fantastic.
33 always stuck with me as a kid.
Oh, I love that. I love the story.
Yeah, 33 always stuck with me as a kid. Same with FF51.
Yeah.
Where that guy changes into the Thing, but then at the end he decides to
Does the right thing.
Does the right thing, and I don't know what happened to him. But anyways, it was in the negative zone. That was the first appearance in the negative zone.
Negative zone, yeah.
Yeah,
Unless the Marvel Universe brought him back, and
yeah,
he morphed into some hero or
yeah.
villain.
But he what was he? He was jealous, right?
He was jealous.
He was jealous, and then he hated the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
And so he stole Thing's powers.
He hated Reed.
And he was going to destroy him. But then he found out
Reed.
that they were actually good people. And then he did the right thing at the very
He
end. and
found
saved
out what
him.
a wonderful man he is.
That was a good story.
And he gave his life for Reed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying, stories are fantastic, but the point I'm trying to make is that collecting fines and VG fines and fine pluses and fine minuses, even VGs, they're fantastic books. And they're a fantastic buy. They're way too cheap. Way, way, way too cheap. It's crazy when you look at you got a Spider-Man 27's purple cover, Bring Back My Goblin to Me. It's funny, the title. But 1965. And you look at a 9.4 and a 9.2, and they're, $1 bazillion or $2,000 or something like that. They're a lot of money for the average person, $2,500, $3,000, whatever. And you look at a 6.0 and you go, you mean I can buy that for $80 or $125? And you go, what?
Slightly above case cost, double case cost. Yeah.
And this company just certified, they've checked everything for me. They've counted the pages. They've looked for missing coupons. They checked for married pages. They checked for restaurant. They did all this work for me. And all I got to do is pay $100 for this book? That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of good deals out there. I always try to tell people. The hard thing is like the more newer generations are probably on YouTube, and so when they see Spider-Man 27, they're like, oh, "That's old." Like to them, like my average viewer is like an 80s and 90s collector.
Yeah.
So even then, one thing I hate about
time
CGC,
relativity. That's what
the one thing I hate about CGC, which is very, very dumb that they do this, which makes no sense to me, is I'll send in a book like this, right? I have another book like similar to this, but what this is Erie #1. Yeah. This is, they wouldn't grade this, and same with this other book, because they're like, well, we don't know if it's counterfeit or not. I'm like, I know if it's not counterfeit or not. I know, because you should be more knowledgeable than me. Like, it boggles my mind. You are a comic book grader company. It's your job to figure out if this is a counterfeit or not. And it's very easy to tell. It's very easy. All the knowledge is out there. It takes them all of like 2 seconds to do research. And so they won't grade it. They send it back. And same with this other book that I had, which is similar like that. It was, I forget what it was. Anyways, there was 3 books. I think it was like Stuntman or something like that. The comic company went out of business, or they stopped that title. And so they still had the artwork and everything like that. And so then what they did is like, well, we don't want to make this comic book and send it out to distributors. So they made like a black and white small version of that, and they gave it out to like a shoe store or something like that.
Right.
Because they already had the pages done and everything like that, the artwork already done. And we don't know. And I'm like, this thing's rare. Obviously, there's like 25 that exist. But it's like, if you do an ounce of research, you can figure out what it is, and they won't grade it. They won't grade it. So now what I'm asking you is, will you grade actual comic books, such as this?
Well, there's certain
Is it Erie #1?
There's certain telltale signs that you can tell if something is a reprint, if it's been photocopied. The halftoning is either missing, or it's fuzzed out. It's almost, you can tell it's a copy of a copy. The problem is having people on staff that have the ability to make that call. You understand? So it's actually more cost effective for a company to set it aside and say, I'm sorry, we don't grade this. Because what they're telling you is they can't know for certain one way or another. And once they put it in their label, then they don't want it to come back on them. Like someone in the future, 10 years from now, comes up with some computer AI program and says, well, we discovered that's a fraud.
Okay, so are you not going to grade that?
I haven't even looked at it. No,
Yeah.
there are ways to tell.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is very easy to tell. Like, I can tell. I know how to look at it. It's same as gobbledygook. They won't grade it unless they get a handwritten letter from Kevin Eastman himself, which, by the way, if you want to make copies, I'm the only one on this planet that can make copies, because I have the original masters. So I can go to Xerox and I can make a bunch more if I wanted.
And what would that do for you?
I wouldn't. Why would I? I'm just saying, I'm the only one that could make a counterfeit. I'm literally the only one, because I have the original master for 1 and 2 of gobbledygook. But if you want it graded, which they won't. And so CBCS does it. So that's what I'm saying. I'm like, it's not that hard to tell. I can tell. Just do an ounce of research.
Again, you have a certain level of graders and a certain level of expertise within the company. When you go beyond that, you have to pay for it.
Yeah, well, I'm fine. I'll pay extra.
No, not you. The company has to pay for it.
But they're in the comic book grading business. That is their job.
People out there don't understand how little profit there is in comic book grading. It is nightmarishly narrow profit margin. You're doing all this work, including a case, for a tiny amount of money, and there's price wars out there which keep the prices down. So it makes no sense. But you have to stay in business.
So they do this a lot, and they slowly open up these other. So they didn't grade 2000 AD #2, which was first Judge Dredd, 1977. They didn't grade that, and then they just started grading them, right, randomly. And
you've got one guy that knows, right? You have to have a class and explain it to the other graders how to know.
Mm-hmm.
That takes time. That takes effort. That takes money. That takes due diligence. And there's a mountain of books behind them they got to get out today. So they keep putting it off, not because they're lazy, but because they've got to get books out the door that are already 2 weeks late. And so they'll deal with that when they get the time, is what they're saying. I understand that in business. But you need people on staff. You need older people.
Yeah. Well, bring me on staff. Pay me some money. I'll tell you how to do it.
You're too independent.
Well, no, just pay me as a consultation. I'm talking about CGC or whoever. I'll be like, look, this is how you figure it out. I will teach whoever needs. I'll make a video for you.
Here's what happens when a grader becomes a grader. You get torn down. You get ripped apart. You get ripped to shreds. Any ounce of dignity you thought you had, in the sense that you're a professional at your trade, is ripped apart from you. And then you're rebuilt.
So that's what you're doing to the new staff?
And
you're
then when
tearing
you're
them
done-
down. You stupid idiot.
No,
Get
I
on
would-
your knees and grovel for me.
I never would say anything bad to anybody. Ever.
You think you know how to grade? Kick them down the stairs.
My point is that it's completely different than what you thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you can find a person with 15 years experience, or wait, you're young. You can find a person with 5 years.
I have 40 years experience, Dad. I was born into the comic business.
You're only, what, 39?
I'm 39, yeah. So I have
Okay,
39
so-
experience. But then I have my womb. That's
Your
an extra
womb-
9 months when I was in the womb.
My point is that if you find a grader professional that's got 5 years in the hobby, and you've got many more years experience than them, you're not going to respect them. But the problem is that you really don't know what they know.
I mean, all I wanted to know is, will you grade my comic books that CGC refuses to grade?
We're here to grade comic books. That's what we're here to do.
Thank you.
And we will do the due diligence and the research.
Because that opens a whole new market of comic books that CGC refuses to grade because they don't want to do an ounce of research. And so therefore it's like, here's money right here I can give you. And I have more comic books like this.
Your business will not fail based on one comic book. Be at peace.
I understand that, but it's just frustrating to me because I'll send it in, they send it back, I get charged. Well, great,
Right.
and then it's just like, you didn't grade it, but you charged me. Awesome,
Right.
right? You should not even charge me at all.
Because it's outside the arena of normal business to them.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just find that odd because it is a comic book, and they just put their hand down on this one particularly, or a couple other ones that I have, and they charge me for it too. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this blew my mind. Oh, made me so mad. So this thing called Deadline, first appearance of Tank Girl. They made a movie about her, European comic. Anyways,
I'd be a terrible
what
at your job.
what?
I'm too calm and easygoing.
People love it when I go on
I know
rants.
you go off and you
Yeah.
go from one. You're talking. Okay, I need to know the answer to this, and then 10 seconds later you're on another subject, and then 10 seconds later you're on another.
They love it. Well, that's just how my
I
personality
know.
is.
I will milk one thing to the end, and then it's
I-
done.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, anyways, Tank Girl, Deadline. I think it's #1. Anyways, we send it in, and this is not unique. This is the second time they've done this with another book that's larger. We send it in, and they're like, they send it back, and they charge us. Of course, they charge us, and they go, "Sorry, we don't grade this." And I'm like, "You don't grade this?" I literally go online, go on eBay, find 5 of them that is graded, send them a picture. I'm like, yes, you do. Not only have you graded one of ours, but there's like 5 on eBay right now that you grade this. Oh, send it back in and we'll work something out. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is we send it in. You've graded multiple of these, and then all of a sudden we don't grade it. And I'm like, oh my god, it's like, not to mention, I don't know. I'm gonna go on a rant. But anyways,
when you get my age, you're gonna have a heart attack. Just relax.
No,
breathe.
So let's wrap this up. But I want to wrap it up with talking about San Diego Comic-Con because that was right around the corner.
We haven't talked about hardly anything about
PSA. We talked a ton about PSA.
A little bit, but go ahead.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
You finish what you're going to finish first.
Okay, I want to ask you, who created San Diego Comic-Con?
You asked me that in the car.
And I didn't tell the answer.
Tell me the answer now.
Jack Kirby.
All right.
So this is how it happened. I did a whole history thing on it. That's why I loved it. I love doing like history documentaries on the stuff. Anyways, so there's these kids, and you probably know this. Back in the day, there's no comic book shops. This is 1970, and so anyone you could find.
I will attest to that. There were none in my area in the Well, I was go back to 60s, but.
So this is 1970. There's no comic book shops. So the kids that would hang out, you find someone that like comics and you like comics, you'd hang out. And it didn't matter the age. So there's kids that are like 12 years old hanging out with like 30-year-olds. And they're all in between. Most of them are high schoolers.
Right.
And they all love comics. And they're like, how can we make a comic book convention? So one of the guys who was older, he happened to have experience in Detroit. He moved here with conventions per se. So what they did is he knew Jack Kirby, who lived up in Orange County, where you are. And so they went up there. They all hung out. Jack Kirby's wife, I forget her name. Roz. Made him sandwiches and hamburgers and stuff like that. And they all hung out with Jack Kirby. He drew pictures of them and all sorts of stuff. And he told them, like, this is what you need to do. He's like, you need to have guest speakers. And so that's why Jack Kirby was the very first one. You need to incorporate other elements, not just comic books, sci-fi, monster stuff, everything. Make it like nerd culture, but it wasn't called that back then. And so he did all that stuff. And so they had a dry run in March of 70, where it was just one day to raise some money for the big one, which would have been in August for 3 days. Mm-hmm. And they had Jack Kirby at that one. And you remember pre-convention, the actual, and it was called something different. It wasn't called San Diego Comic-Con. It was called like Golden State West Comic-Con San Diego Division.
Right.
But yeah, so he started it. And did you know that in 1976, a young filmmaker decided to show stills to a movie that he was making. And you know what movie that was? Star Wars. So in 1976, they opened the hall and people got to see still images of the first Star Wars as George Lucas explains what it was.
Yeah. The con has evolved so much over the decades.
And you were telling me a story about how you met Peter Laird and Eastman when they were just on like the second Turtles or something, second or third Turtles.
Kevin and Peter were working on their comic book. I forget I think like issue number 2 or 3 they were working on. And they were just normal people.
Yeah. You know what he did with a lot of his money? He bought a tank and put it in his backyard. Obviously, it couldn't drive anywhere.
Interesting.
And then he was like, I was so excited when I got my tank. And then I sat in it. And then I go, okay, now I have a tank in my backyard.
Now it's going to rust.
Yeah, it's just going to sit back there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's so crazy to me. It's like the Turtles ended up coming out to be the most successful independent creation ever.
Right.
It's over $1 billion franchise. And all started, and you could have bought all their number ones and just stashed them away.
I don't know. It's like today, people, they don't know because they live in the era.
Yeah.
They live in the era they're born in. And so they assume that everything behind them was the better deals. And everything in front of them, there's nothing really. No other hills, mountains to conquer. It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, it's going to get better.
Yeah. So, yeah, people couldn't foresee that the Turtles, I did. I foresaw. Mm-hmm. But most people couldn't foresee that the Turtles was going to be a big deal like that was.
Anyway, PSA is opening up. Mm-hmm. And we've got a good crew we're building. We've got a lot of knowledge, and that's critical for the product that we're going to turn out for people. We've got a case that is unbelievably wonderful, beautiful to look at. We're tweaking some things, but we have two different types of, actually we have a lot more than that. But we're going to have a case which I call the deluxe. I don't know if we can use the word fortress or not, but it truly is a fortress. Maybe we
Of
have
solitude?
Hmm?
Fortress of solitude.
maybe,
You get a giant key to
well,
open it up.
There was a person that came out, I can't mention it, with the fortress back in the early 90s, I think it was, late 80s, early 90s, Chris Pedron, and nice guy.
So you're going to have two cases.
Yeah.
And explain the difference between two cases.
One's here and one's there. No. One's going to be for, the Silver Age to modern size, and the other one's going to be for Golden Age and what I would say really valuable books. If you want your book in a safe fortress, this is where you would put it.
This was my suggestion.
Yeah.
I was like,
So,
you need to have the Fort Knox case.
I can't stand seeing a Batman 1 or a Detective 27 in a case that if you drop the case, it'll shatter, number one. But number two, it's so far to the edge on either side.
On a CGC case is what he's speaking.
I won't talk about our competitors.
I'm talking about the competitor.
It's so close to the edges that the slightest little bump.
No, sometimes I've seen them in a CGC case. They put the Golden Age in there because Golden Age is traditionally bigger, and it's warbled because it's smashed in there. And I'm like, what are you doing? Because they don't want to put it in a magazine case because those are ginormous, right? And so they put it in their normal, the same one they put it in a modern book, and it's like smashed together on the end. So I'm like, you're ruining the book.
There's aftermarket products that have been designed, and there's this mental barrier that everything has to be a certain size, regardless of the thickness of the comic book, regardless of the actual dimension size of the comic book. It's got to fit in this size case because my box is that size.
Yeah.
And it's almost humorous, but that's just the way it is there's this thinking that it's got to be this way. But if you had an Amazing Fantasy 15 or a Detective 27 or an Action 1, I would never want it in a case like that.
Exactly.
If you drop it, it's screwed. It's gone.
You have a $50,000, $100,000, $1 million comic book. Why isn't it in the exact same case as a $50 modern book? It makes no sense.
I know.
Pay the little bit extra money, which most people would be happy to have a nice case.
Well, I think they'll be very...
It's bulletproof, right?
Pardon me?
It's bulletproof.
No, it's not bulletproof. It is by far the most superior case ever conceived of. I've put it through the ringer on everything I can think of, and it works well. So I'll leave it at that. But there'll be two different sizes, and so therefore, if you do have that modern book or Silver Age book that you don't want to invest the money into, and you want it in the industry standard size, great, we can do that for you. Or if you want it in this citadel, this fortress that we're creating, then.
Is the Fortress case, is it just bigger, or is there more features to it?
Both.
Both. Okay, so it's bigger and there's more protection, more...
Yeah, it's 60 inches tall.
It comes delivered on a freight train.
No. It's think of between the magazine and the comic book size.
Now that's a size, but is it more features as in there's maybe different plastic, different something going on differently that makes it better?
We'll explain that more, but it has qualities that allow it to hit the floor and not shatter.
Mm-hmm.
It has suspension qualities that are different. It's not built with the same dynamic of an interior blister that you're used to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll just say that. You'll see what's coming, but that's...
And that comes in January, people can start submitting.
Mm-hmm.
Can they submit earlier, but grading starts in January?
Our first test case that you will see at the San Diego Comic Book Convention, we did a promo with Marvel, Kith, and PSA. And they're not graded. They're just
display.
Authentic, yeah. But this is our first case, our prototype, and it's superior in every which way you can think of. But they'll be on display at the San Diego Comic Book Convention this year, starting tomorrow.
Okay.
Wednesday, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
well, today's Tuesday. I'll probably upload this video tomorrow.
yeah. So if you want to take a look, these are the larger ones that will eventually be hammered out.
So these are the prototypes. So basically,
into our bulletproof, not bulletproof, but our Citadel or Fortress case that we're making for larger books or more valuable books. My thoughts are, if you have an Amazing Fantasy 15, we know the dimensions are similar to that of a bronze modern age book, but you've got a lot of money in that case. You want to make sure the case, you can't say, oops, it fell off the wall, oops, it fell off the counter, oops, it dropped. It's screw the case cost. What's it cost to recase it? Nothing. Okay, you're talking about the integrity of the book itself, the protection of the book itself.
exactly.
You want it as something that's far more protected. Also, I am tired of hearing about how you can open up the different clamshell cases with heat and swap out the labels and mess with. We talked about that earlier in the program, but you can't do that with ours.
Cannot. Right? Cannot. Okay. Yeah, which is good.
You can't do it. You might get ticked off that, darn, they're hard to crack out. Well, sorry. They're going to be hard to crack out. Well, I can show you how to do it, but I'm not going to show you here how to do it. But you can't crack it out without damaging the case.
So it's tamper evident. So basically, if someone tampers with it, they will know.
Oh, yeah.
Will it stand up to a car? I ran the other ones over with a car. Can I run this one over with a car? And can you put your money where your mouth is and put a Fantasy 15 in there, and I'll run it over with the car?
I would just say that in all the tests that we've done, it came out superior. So, and I'm not, bad-mouthing competitors. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to say that we've come up with, I think, the best case that there is. And we've got 2 different sizes to put your comic book in to protect it.
And what about pricing?
It's going to be very similar.
Okay.
It's not like it's super expensive. I will say this, deservedly so, that our Fortress Citadel, we haven't named it yet, case is going to be a little more expensive.
Call it the whole case.
The whole case?
Yeah. Over the whole case.
It's going to be a little more expensive, but not too much more expensive. But it's not going to have the problems that the magazine cases have where you drop them and they shatter.
Oh, the magazine cases for CGC are literally the most brittle thing because they use that same brittle plastic and it's bigger and there's more of it. Literally, it's like, I would say about 50% of the magazine comics that come in that are cased, come into my consignment center, are cracked in some way. And it's no fault to, you have to pack it very, 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 we even pack stuff in sometimes, it's just so brittle. It is so brittle.
Well, we've solved that problem.
Because they want it so clear. I don't know, the plastics they use, I don't know. They need to go back to the drawing board.
Well, we've solved that problem, and it's far stronger. I think we're going to have, as far as, replacing cracked cases the percentage will be far, far fewer.
That's good.
Which I think will be helpful to everybody out there that wants a good, strong case. But
what about the label when it comes to restored?
When the label comes to this restored?
No.
I've never seen a restored label.
The label, so you guys are going with your classic PSA look, with the white with the red thing. Are you going to change the label if it's a restored book? Like, is it going to be like maybe a different color instead of the red? I talked to people about it, but I never got it.
I don't like the color-coded. Never did. It really created a stigma with restored books, and CBC has circumvented that by using identical labels and then marking it restored and then putting what was done. We've got some ideas that I think are going to be a bit different.
Okay.
And but we're going to point out restoration. We're going to point out trimming. We're going to point out married covers or pages.
You guys going to have notes on the website that people
I had to fight for that. Yeah.
Are they free?
Of course.
Okay. Free notes. I'm just wondering. And pictures, right? You guys get pictures of the book?
We're working on that. We have pictures coming in and pictures going out. So I don't know how that's above my pay grade. I don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to display that for people moving forward. I don't know if the person that submits it gets the picture or how that works. Or,
Yeah,
or it costs something. I don't know that.
I know with like CGC, they give pictures of every new book, which is very actually helpful. I will say that. It's extremely helpful, especially when people want to check out books themselves or they don't have pictures, you just type in the serial number. Also, it's great for websites. I will say that a lot of dealers use them, so they don't have to.
They may have a system by which you unlock certain additives, certain extras that if you're part of, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. That's not me designing any of that. My job is to make sure your book comes to you with a proper grade, hiring the right people, making sure that we have a solid case.
Do you know are you going to go, is your price going to be based off of tier or is it going to be based off of turnaround time? Do you know?
Turnaround time is an element. Can you edit this out?
I don't know what they're doing.
It's termites.
Yeah.
Is there someone out there?
No, it's.
Why don't you go take a look?
It's Drew and Thomas. We'll wrap this up. They want to go. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like termites. No. What was the last sentence?
Turnaround time based off price.
It's an element that has to enter into the pricing simply because you're asking to move this order ahead of the next order. Do you understand? You understand that?
I just didn't.
Right. So there's going to be an element of that you pay more money for a certain type of service, or there's no way you can help that. Otherwise, you're hurting the person that was in line ahead of you. No one likes that.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious if it's how it's going to be. So basically, what we're going to be looking at is around January is when people can start submitting.
I don't know the exact time, but we have a lot of layout and design. We're rebuilding our headquarters. Beautiful.
It's huge, by the way. It's huge, massive. I've been there.
It's gigantic.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's everything's state of the art. Everything's beautiful, but right now it's under construction and so forth. But we have a lot on our plate. We're doing a lot over at PSA Collectors. So comics is one of the things we're doing a lot with. So I'll have more if you want to have another get together like this. I don't mind this at all.
Maybe I would love it if I could come there and see the process and like film the process of like from start to finish.
That we've got all kinds of people involved with that. So I'd have to figure that out. I can't say yes or no.
Just tell me right now.
No.
Tell me
I
now.
can't. Okay.
I know, but I was saying if I could, I think that'd be really cool if I could see like the film, like the ins and outs. If not, that's fine.
I can't say there's no magic in grading. It's just you have to reorient your mind, and minds are very stubborn things. You've laid groundwork of years, and it's really hard to admit that you've been doing it wrong. And I don't want to tell anybody they've been doing it wrong.
Yeah, well, not me though.
Right, of course. Not so when I had to be humbled. I've been in this. How long ago was 1966? I mean, how long ago was that?
That's not when you were born. Is that your first time you got a comic book?
I was born in 56. No, I started collecting in 66. So how long?
Start with a Spider-Man, right?
Yeah. So.
And your brother got a Fantastic Four.
Yeah, but we were collecting and grading almost immediately because people wanted to know whose copy was better. It starts out at a very primitive level like that. But as time went on, you're buying and selling. Every dealer learns by bee stings. They don't learn by technical training. They learn by bee stings. In other words, if I send a book out and someone says to me, "You idiot, that's not a VG, it's a good at best," and you go, you log that in your mind and you think, okay, you learn. And then you send out something else and you don't hear anything back. And then later you're seeing your book up for sale at a much higher grade and you realize, okay, I guess I was way too strict on that book. And you go to conventions and you converse and you buy and you sell. And over the years, and then you sell mail order, then you sell in your own comic book shop. You learn what a VG, a fine, the nomenclature grades. You don't learn technical grading. We start learning technical grading. We started sending them into the professional grading companies. And we get pissed off. And then we learn to gulp. And then we learn, whoa, I was way off on that grade. But eventually, we find ourselves merging with their system.
Yeah.
And like you, you can pretty much tell what it's going to come back as within a parameter. But still, no one's ever learned technical grading. They're learning from bee stings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, technical grading is something totally different. And let me tell you, it does rip you down and make you feel as though you're an idiot.
Not me. All I hear is, David, your grading is perfect, and you're gonna get a 10-0 on everything you send in. Okay, it was great having you on. Everyone's getting hungry, and you know, now that you're gonna be down here because you are moving to California, and no longer living in Texas. I know the viewers love having you on to talk about old stories. So
The who?
The people out there, the two people that are watching this, they like the old stories. A lot of people like
olden days stories.
They love the olden days stories. So I'll have you on more. We won't have to talk about PSA. We can talk about more olden day stories, and things like that. You know, you can tell me that Frank Miller story that you told me in the car.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know that story.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so very interesting stuff.
If I can tell people anything, it's just relax, enjoy the hobby, enjoy what you collect, and realize that the future is going to be better than it is now. It's always been that way.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about, there was an 80s crash, right, in comics? Wasn't there an 80s? Yeah. And then there's like obviously the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, you went through those.
There's always times when you think your books are never going to go up in value, and they decrease in value. And you're thinking, oh, what am I doing in this hobby? You know, don't worry.
Yeah.
I'll leave with a little funny story. No?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay.
I got this collection in. Kind of blew my mind. Two brothers. Sadly, one brother passed away.
I know what this is. I was there.
And the other brother sold their comics, and then he passed away shortly thereafter. But for some reason, they got a bee in their bonnet. And in 1968, all the reboots, the Iron Man #1, Iron Man Submarine #1,
Nick Fury, Hulk
Nick
102,
Fury, Captain Marvel. Okay, all these reboots, they went nuts. Now remember, they're 12 cents a piece, but these guys were older. They were in their early 20s, and they just went from 7-Eleven to there's no comic shop, 7-Eleven to whatever kind of store there was, you know, and started picking out the best ones off the rack. And they kept buying them and buying them and buying them and buying them and buying them. And they put them into foil, tin foil, and put them into, there was no comic boxes. So they stored all these. Like, for instance, I had 300 copies of Submariner #1.
By the way, any 99s you see out there, Nick Fury 1, Iron Man, Submariner #1, Iron Man #1, all came
Cap
from that
100.
Cap 100. That all came from that collection.
Yes.
That very collection that they're out there graded. There's only like one of these. All came from that. I was there. I remember meeting the guy. I sat in the back.
300 copies of Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm. I was probably, what, like 8?
Yeah. It was like, I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm stunned. I'm thinking, okay, but you got to remember, we're talking 1992 or 3 or 4. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Anyways, but
it was before CGC, but you still had some left.
Yeah.
And then you got them graded.
Maybe it was the mid-90s.
Yeah, I think it was a little later.
Anyway, so get these all in. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do with them? You know, there's no internet. There's like, okay, it's wonderful to have them. What do you do with them? They're all gorgeous. Okay. I start putting in my catalog. I'd sell, you know, one of each, you know, for 60% off during a Christmas sale or whatever, and I had a hard time selling them. And so I'm left there. I'm finally getting through them, thinking this was a terrible deal. I shouldn't have bought any of these. And then John Warren comes out with his monthly. John Warren's a nice guy. He decided to make comics more like stocks back in the 90s. But there's no internet. Okay,
Is this like Wizard then?
I forgot. Him and Overstreet got together. They partnered up on it, and John did all the work. It was a wonderful production. I forget what it's called. It was a monthly. And he showed a graph going up and down. Well, I pick it up, and there's all my books went down in value because I found these books. So now they went down in value. So the double whammy. What am I going to do with these books? So I finally end up selling my business, and I had just a little stack left over. I'll send them in this new company, CGC. I was one of the founding members. I think my dealer number is 14, and that's only because I waited 4 weeks to get a number. Otherwise, I would have been number 2. Steve walked away. I'd have been number 2. So I got number 14 dealer number. Anyway, so I sent him in 98, 98, 98, 98 Ironman once. And I'm thinking, who cares? 98. No big deal. And I got a Submariner 198, and I got an Ironman Submariner 198. I'm thinking, what? And then one of my customers calls me up and says, hey, the Nick Fury you sent me, I got a 99. I think, okay, who cares? 98s, 99s. There was no census.
They weren't stingy back then.
We didn't know anything, you know. So I sent the guy the 98 Submariner Ironman number 1 for $500. 98 Ironman number 1. Sold for $500. Guy sends it back. I don't know what this is in this case. I can't open it up. And he says, there's a tiny little stain. I'm thinking, where's the stain? It was a printer's.
Distribute ink overspray?
No. It was just a little printer's extra bit of ink. And I'm thinking, you know. So he sends it back. So I'm thinking, these aren't worth anything. CGC doesn't make them worth any more money. No big deal. I got rid of it for $450. Got rid of them all. And
you took him to San Diego Comic-Con because I was there.
Yeah, but
that was the year I got that little scooter thing, little Razor scooter.
I don't know what they're worth today, but
a lot more than that.
A lot more than $500, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's
probably for.
I sold my 99 Nick Fury number 1, white page 99 that it got. He got it for 60% off guide way back in the day. I think he paid $35 for it, $30. It's got to be worth a couple $100 today, right?
Yep.
Nick Fury number 199.
Yeah.
White. Yeah. Anyway.
So what was the moral of the story?
There's no moral of the story.
It was just a bad deal for you.
A cool story back in the day that if I just would have stuck them all into a drawer, I'd have been a millionaire, but I didn't know.
Yeah. I remember that. I remember sitting in the back of the truck, and I remember the guy. It was the one brother because the other brother died.
Yeah.
And I remember just flipping through them in a scene over and over. Hulk 102, just like
102, 102.
Over and over and over and over. And I was like, this is so cool.
It's cool on one hand, but then pre-internet days, how did you sell them?
Well, you had your catalog.
Yeah, your catalog would say, oh, those must be common as dirt. And that's what John Warren thought. Well, they're common as dirt because Mark's got a whole load of them. So let's drop the price.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Well, on that note, on that high note, so now that's the news. He is now the head of the comic book division. Wait, are you hiring?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so if you live in, where is it, Santa Ana, right?
Well, yeah, I've already got a couple of guys in mind, and
I'm saying if anyone else
it'll
there
be
wants
an
a job.
expansive department that we're going to continue to expand. The whole idea is to grow. Obviously, I'm not worried about taking market share. I'm not worried about that issue at all. I've got other ideas in mind, and
well, I guess if you're looking for a job and you're in the Orange County area, I don't know, maybe there's someone out there that wants a job in comics. Then as a grader or a post person, shipper. But in any case, yeah. Thank you for coming on and sharing your news.
Thank you, David.
He'll be at the San Diego Comic-Con at the booth there for
700,
PSA.
booth 700.
Booth 700. I'll be walking around on Thursday. Come say hi to my dad, Mark Wilson, or myself. I'm walking around. And
yeah, Davey's going to be there.
Yeah, I'll be there on Thursday.
He's famous. I'm not.
I'm not famous. Although I was literally so there's a gym right next to me, and I go there on my lunch break and I work out. And so I go to the gym, and this guy comes up to me as I'm on the bench press. I'm like sitting up in between a set, on my phone, and he comes up to me and he's standing like right next to me.
How could you be on your phone during a bench press?
No, in between sets.
Oh.
And I'm standing there, and Drew, calm down. And then so I'm standing there, and this guy comes up to me, and he's like staring at me, and I thought he wanted to work in or something like that. And so I look up and I take off my headphones. And he's like, yeah, and I can't remember. He started just talking to me, and I was so confused. I was like, oh, I must know him from somewhere.
Right.
And then he's like, yeah, I thought it was you. I recognized your tattoos and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, uh-huh. And I'm like, sorry, who are you? And then he's like, I can't remember his name. Maybe it was Alex or something like that. He's like, I'm Alex. Watch your YouTube. And I'm like, was this like, wait, I'm at his gym. What? It's like this. And it was so weird. It was just so weird to see like out of your element, like does some person like recognize me at the gym of all places.
Yeah.
So, and you know, he didn't look like you'd think like a comic book nerd to look. So it was even more thrown off.
Well, they're not comic nerds anymore.
I know.
There's a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
Not us, but I mean, a lot of people out there.
So, but it was just like totally threw me off. So I was recognized once.
Yeah.
At the gym.
Now, when you're an old man and the old folks, I was recognized at the gym. I'm somebody.
No, the coolest recognized story I've ever gotten was I played at Big Bear. They had a lodge, and I was in a band, and the headliner band were there for 3 nights, and so we got free lodging and everything like that. After the first night, the headliner band, the singer got sick, so they all left. So now we have this spot for an hour to fill, and so we're like, what are we gonna do for an hour?
Sing songs.
So 2 of the people went up to some covers, and then I was like, I'll play some songs. And so I literally wrote a couple songs and went up there and performed them. And then years later, like probably like 3 to 5 years later, I was at the beach in San Diego, and all of a sudden my friend starts hitting on these girls, and this girl looks up at me and she goes, I know you.
You hit them?
Flirting with him. She's like, I know you. You performed at the Big Bear and you played like an acoustic show. I'm like, that's weird and random.
Termites again.
Yeah. All right, well, we got to go. Have a good day.
Bye.